The first weird sign is not your birthday. It's the tab you left open for 3 weeks. Best careers to start at 40. Can I retrain at 45? Is it too late to move countries? Mortgage calculator. Symptoms of perimenopause. How much should I have saved by now? You don't click them every day. You just keep them there. Tiny little unpaid bills in your browser. Proof that some part of you is still trying to solve the same question. Am I late? Not late to a meeting, not late to reply, late to your own life. And this is where being a Xennial gets strange. On paper, you're old enough to know better. You've lived through dial-up, 9/11, the 2008 crash, smartphones, social media, remote work, pandemics, inflation, AI, and whatever new nonsense is currently being sold as the future of work. You're not innocent, but inside, there's still this ridiculous feeling that adulthood was supposed to start any minute now. Any minute. Maybe after the next job. Maybe after the apartment is sorted. Maybe after the kids are older. Maybe after the debt is gone. Or maybe after the world calms down for 5 consecutive minutes, which frankly was optimistic. So you keep waiting for the part where things feel settled. Then one morning, you look at your face in the bathroom mirror, and there it is. A line near your eye you swear was not there last Thursday. Your back makes a sound when you stand up. Someone calls you sir or ma'am without irony. A 24-year-old at work says, I was born in 2002, and you do the math against your will. That is when the split opens. Too young to be old, too old to start over. Nobody prepared you for that hallway because the world kept selling you 2 stories at the same time. The first story said, you're still young, reinvent yourself, change careers, launch the thing, move, learn, heal, start again. The second story said, be realistic. You should have savings, a house, a stable role, stable knees, stable cholesterol, and maybe a sensible container where you keep batteries. So which is it? Are you still becoming, or are you already behind? That question is not motivational. It is expensive. It shows up in the grocery aisle when you choose the cheaper olive oil and feel weirdly defeated. It shows up when job listings ask for early career energy, but also 15 years of experience. It shows up when your parents need help with paperwork, and your children, if you have them, need help with everything else. And it shows up when the adults you used to look for are now looking at you, and you think, quietly, I'm the adult? Really? This one? The problem is not that you are immature. That's the lazy explanation. The problem is that your adulthood was built on moving ground. A lot of Xennials were handed an old map. Work hard, be loyal, buy when you can, follow the path. Then the path started shedding pieces. The job market stopped behaving like a ladder and started behaving like a trapdoor. Houses became numbers people said out loud with a straight face. Degrees became expensive receipts. The internet turned every skill into a temporary skill. You could spend 5 years becoming good at something, then wake up to a software update that made everyone quietly ask if your job was still necessary. Nice. So when people say, it's never too late, part of you wants to believe them. Another part of you wants to ask, with what money? With what energy? With what childcare? With what health insurance? With what spare decade sitting untouched in the drawer? This is the part that inspirational content usually skips. Starting over at 22 is messy. Starting over at 42 has logistics. At 22, you can sleep on a mattress on the floor and call it a phase. At 42, the floor has consequences. Your lower back will file a formal complaint by morning. And still, something small and stubborn in you refuses to be done, still wants a life that feels chosen, not just managed. That is the tension. You can no longer pretend time is endless, but you also can't accept that the rest of your life is just maintenance. Psychologist Erik Erikson mapped the genuine psychological conflicts each stage of life demands of you. He identified the one at this exact point, your 40s, and named it generativity versus stagnation. Generativity is the need to feel your life is producing something real, a direction, a contribution, the sense that you're still moving towards something, not just maintaining what already exists. Stagnation is what happens when that goes unmet. The bills get paid, but underneath, something feels like a loop. Erikson didn't frame this as a breakdown. He framed it as a developmental task. The psychological work your age requires of you, whether you are ready or not evidence that you failed. evidence that you arrived at a threshold most people reach and never have named for them. Most people call it a midlife crisis. That framing does a lot of damage. A crisis is when you buy a motorcycle you can't afford and start saying things like, "I just need freedom," while wearing leather pants in a climate that does not support that decision. What most Xennials are actually doing is quieter than that. It's an audit. It's sitting in your car outside the supermarket, engine off, and realizing you've been dependable for so long that you no longer know what you would choose if nobody needed anything from you. It's scrolling through old photos and not missing the person exactly, but missing the sheer quantity of future they still had. It's hearing Wonderwall by Oasis in a pharmacy and suddenly remembering a version of yourself that had absolutely no idea how much would happen. No warning, no manual, no refund. Here's the part nobody likes to say out loud. Some doors did close. They did. Pretending otherwise is insulting. There are choices that become harder with age. Some become impossible. Some dreams expire because bodies change, responsibilities grow, money runs out, people leave, or time simply does what time does. But closed doors are not the same thing as a closed life. This is where Xennials often get stuck. You compare your current life to the old blueprint. And because the blueprint failed, you assume the whole building is wrong. Maybe it's not. Maybe the question is no longer, how do I get back on track? Maybe the better question is, whose track was that? Because a lot of what you're grieving was never truly yours. It was a package deal sold to you before the terms changed. Career stability, affordable housing, one clear adulthood, a future that got easier if you behaved. You behaved. The deal still changed, so the shame does not belong entirely to you. But the next choice does. Not the giant cinematic choice, not burn it all down by Friday. Real life is rarely that clean. The smaller choice, the boring, adult, slightly annoying choice to stop measuring your life against a timeline that expired years ago. Maybe starting over doesn't mean becoming 25 again with better skincare. Maybe it means starting from the truth. The truth that you're not as young as you feel in some rooms. The truth that you're not as old as fear tells you at 2:13 in the morning. The truth that you still have time, but not the kind you can waste pretending you don't want anything. That last part matters. Because a lot of us have become experts at wanting quietly. Quiet ambition, quiet disappointment, quiet little tabs left open in the browser. Quiet resentment when someone else does the thing you spent years talking yourself out of. At some point, quiet becomes a decision. So no, you're not 25. Good. 25 was mostly confusion with better joints. And no, you're not finished. Not even close. You're in the uncomfortable middle. The fantasy has burned off. Possibility is still sitting there, badly dressed, waiting for you to take it seriously. Start smaller than your ego wants. Take the course, make the call, update the resume, fix the room, end the thing that has been ending for years. Begin the thing badly. Let it be awkward. Let it be late. Late is still a time. What you can't do is keep standing in the hallway, reading both signs forever. Too young to be old, too old to start over. Maybe both are true. Fine, start from there.